In this presentation, we're going to be looking at the new animation retargeting workflow in Maya 2011 that's based on the HumanIK middleware. Using HumanIK with animation layers lets you retarget the character animation and modify it non-destructively. The new retargeting workflow is a live process, so what this does is it allows you to adjust the various parameters and see the results immediately. So I have two different characters in my scene. One of them has the motion capture data on it, the character on the left, just this guy kind of doing this little back handspring and then pushing himself back over, and then he does a couple little turns here at the end. And what we want to do is we want to retarget that animation onto my gem rat on the right hand side. So the process is pretty simple to do this. The first thing we're going to do is go ahead and teach the HumanIK solver about the hierarchies of these skeletons. So this is called the characterization process. So let's go ahead and generate a new HIK node in my scene, and for this one we'll call it _mocap because we're going to characterize that skeleton first. And what we need to do is we need to teach the HIK system about the hierarchy of the skeleton that we want to be using as our source. So this is a really simple process to do. All you have to do is go ahead and start populating these fields with the various joints that correspond to the name. So the left leg, up leg, then we'll do the lower leg. And you basically go through and fill out this chart. There's 12 base joints that need to be required for the HIK solver to work. If you have extra joints, Maya will use those in the solve. It'll just refine the look and feel of the solve, but it doesn't have to have any more than these basic joints. So things like where's the head, where's the hand. So I'm going to go ahead and use a script to fill that in. If you've used the same naming structure in your environment, it's very easy to save a script out, and you don't have to keep doing this every time you want to characterize a skeleton. So we'll go ahead and fill those fields in, and you can see that I've got a couple of extra spine joints in there, some shoulder joints, and some toe joints. So with that done, you just need to make sure your character is in a T-pose facing down the Z-axis, and just go ahead and hit the Characterize button, and that guy is all set up and ready to go. So the next character needs to have a skeleton, and we're going to go ahead and use the skeleton generator to make a new joint hierarchy that we're going to bind this gem rat into. So we'll go ahead and we'll create this new skeleton. And for this character, I know that I need to have two neck joints to have it deform properly. And I'm not concerned about having a fancy foot with a bunch of toes and things like that because he has little shoes on. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn off all the toes except the middle toe. I want to have one toe bone going down the length of the foot there. Now that I've got the hierarchy set for that skeleton, let's start to position the joints so that they kind of line up with this character. Now this process would take a little bit of time, so I've already exported out a template, and we're just going to go ahead and reference that guy back in, which is going to set up my skeleton for me automatically. So again, if you're doing a production and you've got 20 characters that you need to send out to a game engine and they're all using a similar hierarchy, you can go ahead and save out a template, and this will really stop you from having to reinvent the wheel over and over again. So with that done, we're going to go ahead and create a control rig on top of this skeleton. So the control rig is an FK and an HIK solver. So this is really where the magic happens, and this is what's going to be receiving the retargeting information. If you go back to the characterization node, you'll see that Maya's automatically filled in all the information about the original skeleton. So when I used the automatic skeleton generator and I created a control rig, it kind of skipped this step for me. So if I was using my own skeleton rig and I didn't want to use a character generator to create that control rig for me, I would have had to populate the joints into these tabs the same way we did for the source skeleton. So by using the skeleton generator, it just kind of saves one step, I guess, is the easiest way to think of it. So now that that's done, what's being displayed is both the FK handles, which are the FK joints, which are the little sticks going down the guy's arms, and then the IK end markers, which are the red circles on the ends of his hands and his fingers and things like that. Now, I don't really need to see all that information for this presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and hide the FK. I don't really care about seeing that. What I do need to still do, though, is go ahead and skin this character into that skeleton. So we'll go ahead and bring up our outliner. We'll go and we'll add to our selection that original skeleton, and we'll just do a simple smooth bind on that. And then I'm going to copy the weights off of another piece of geometry that I've already done some weighting on using the copy skin weights tool. So we'll go ahead and just apply that. So now our character's set up and ready to go. Let's go ahead and check out what happens if we grab one of these IK handles or HIK handles and begin moving it around. So if I move this arm and kind of drag it straight down, this looks pretty traditional to any other IK system that you've played around with or been exposed to. What makes the HIK solver so unique and so cool is the fact that it has the ability to solve beyond just the body part. So in this example, we're stopping at the body part. If I go to the attributes for this handle, and I add a little bit of pull, or actually I'll max the pull out. Notice what happens when I go ahead and I pull this hand all the way down. The character has the ability to transfer that energy down the shoulder, through the spine, into the leg. So the HIK solver can solve for the whole body globally, holistically, and this is really going to aid us when it comes time to doing the retargeter, when we need to massage the data on top of the retargeter. The ability for the hand to pull energy all the way through the body, or a foot to pull energy all the way through the body, is really key to getting to those really nice end results that we can now achieve with the retargeting system that's in Maya 2011. So let's go ahead and undo that, get that guy kind of back to his traditional T stance, and let's go ahead and set up a retarget. So we'll bring up the HIK window one more time. We'll jump over to the character pipe. So our character that's going to receive the retargeting is already filled in. The source, or the input, is going to be the mocap skeleton. And notice that this is set to automatically create an animation layer for the base retarget, so it's going to shove the retarget into an animation layer. And then it's going to take my control rig, which would be the FK and the IK handles, and put them in their own animation layer. So this is what gives us the non-destructive behavior. Go ahead and bring the channel box up, and we'll just apply this retarget. So what you can see now is we've got our two animation layers. So we've got the retargeting happening right here, and then we have the control rig happening on top of that. Obviously, if I wanted to add more animation layers, maybe isolate just the hands out to their own animation layer, or just the feet, I have that ability at any time to add as many layers as I need to get to the ultimate end result that I'm looking for. So let's go ahead and I'm going to scale this guy down a little bit. So this is the first thing that the retargeter is dealing with, is it's going to be looking and doing an action space compensation. So what that means is it's going to kind of look at the length of, actually let's keep these guys kind of the same size. This is an important thing to realize here. Look at the differences in the height and the size of these characters. They're obviously pretty similar in height, but look at the difference in the length of the legs. This character right here has much longer legs, and then his arms are actually a good bit shorter. His body's a little bit thinner. So the difference in volume and the difference in limb length on these two characters is pretty substantial. And the HIK solver and the retargeting process inside of Maya can handle that without any problems, and that's really one of the real benefits of this retargeting system. So if we scale this character down, the first thing that the retargeter is trying to do is make sure that this character's translation values match the length of his limbs. So his feet are going to be locked down pretty good. You can see that the feet basically on these characters are doing exactly the same thing. And really what's happening is the retargeting system by default is more concerned about matching joint angles. So it's trying to make sure that these limbs are matching in the back, and all the head joints and everything are basically lining up, and the joint angles are all matched. So for the legs, that's great. It's not a problem. The legs are going to be hitting the ground, making the ground points exactly like you'd expect. But the arms on my character, because he's got those really short legs and those really long arms and that really thick upper body, obviously if it's concerned about matching joint angle here, those arms aren't going to be compensating for that, and they're going to essentially be passing through the ground. So these are the types of issues that you're going to run into when you're doing retargeting. There's a good chance that the animation data that you're trying to repurpose, be it motion capture data or traditional keyframing data that you're trying to put onto another character, there's a good chance that those characters are going to have dissimilarities in limb length. So the retargeter has a very robust set of tools when it comes to trying to compensate for those dissimilarities. So let's go ahead and look at how we can use some of those tools to improve this motion capture. I'm going to turn off the display of the skin of that mocap character. We don't really need to see that. And let's go ahead and start to look at some of the attributes on the retargeter. So what's happening here? The first thing that you're going to notice is the reach is set to a value of 100% on the legs. So what that means is the legs are going to be trying to match the overall position of the retarget, and the rotational values for those are also set. Now, if I want to, I can go ahead and turn on force actor space, which basically means let's make this character match in world space. So let me slide my little guy over here, and I'm going to kind of line him up on top of this pretty close. You'll notice that the joint angles are trying to match as best as they can. His feet aren't exactly touching. This little foot end marker is not exactly in this world position of this ankle. If I turn on force actor space, what's going to happen is you can see that my character now is basically, the foot marker is essentially matching that world space. Let's go ahead and scale this guy down a little bit. And we'll scrub through this here. So by having that force world space turned on and having his ankles set to pull 100% to reach that, you can see that his hands still aren't really touching the ground. So what we want to do is we want to say, instead of being more concerned about matching the joint angles or basically being driven by the FK, I want to be more concerned about matching world space, or have the positional information of where the end of this hand is. Pull an HIK solver down that arm and make that hand come down and touch that position. So this is where the full body solve really comes into play. When I start to increase the length of, or the reach value of the wrists, you'll see that not only is the joint value changing, but it's actually going to start to pull all the way through the whole hierarchy of that skeleton and make that guy come down and actually touch the ground, or actually touch his hand to those positions. And you can see how that effect transfers the energy all the way through the body. We're also going to turn on the match for the rotational values for those wrists. And if I drop the ankle pull, you'll see that his foot's going to pull off that ankle and his hand will actually drop down a little bit more. So at any time you can basically go in for any of the body parts and start to adjust how much is it going to be trying to match either the FK or the rotational values of the original motion capture data, or is it going to be trying to match the positional information and using the IK system to pull it down onto it. And all of this again is happening in real time, so I don't have to reprocess this. You know, if I change these parameters, I play around with this, the retargeting basically just happens as I'm doing this in real time. So there's some other things that we're going to play around with on this guy. Let's go ahead and scale him up a little bit more. I like him when he kind of compresses in a little bit here. Let's go look at some of the other attributes that we can play around with that help us refine the overall look of this. The first thing that I want to do is go ahead and turn on some floor contacts. So let's scroll down here to the floor system. And if you got a sense of that list being long, it actually really is substantial. The amount of attributes that you can dial in, play around with, finesse to tweak the overall look of how this retargeting is happening it's kind of ridiculous. It's a very, very powerful system. So we turned on the floor contacts. They're actually not touching the ground, so you won't see any change now. But watch what happens when I turn on the hand contacts. Boom, it pushes his hands up so they don't pass through the floor. And I'm also going to turn on the finger contacts, which is going to spread the fingers out when they touch the ground. So now if we scrub through this, you can see that it's looking pretty cool. He comes and does this cool little twist here. Go and clean up the display a little bit more. I'm not needing to see that original motion capture data anymore now that we've got our character here. So last couple things that I want to play around with are changing the way the shoulders are solving a little bit. I want to go ahead and increase my shoulder correct a little bit, which is going to drop those shoulders down slightly. And I'm also going to increase the stiffness of my spine, so it's going to have a little bit less twist down that character as he runs through this. And we'll just play this back. And again, this is a live process, so while you're playing this back, you can actually sit here and dial in these attributes or change these parameters. So if you're adjusting it and you want to see what a walk cycle looks like, just put it into a loop and you can just sit there and tweak this and finesse it until you get exactly the look that you want. So far, everything that we've been doing has been just changing the way the retargeter is trying to match the dissimilarities between our two skeletons. We also have the ability to start animating on top of this. If you want to start making some tweaks or changes to this at any time, you can do that by simply going into your animation layers and adding either a new animation layer, or in this case we're just going to work on top of the control rig layer. So let's say I want to take his foot, and when he's coming right here I want to make this foot actually kick up and I want him to really rise up very, very high. So I'm going to grab this IK handle, grab it, and if I start moving it around, it looks like a traditional IK system. So right now the pull value's zeroed out, so it's essentially just working like a body part. If I go ahead and I increase the pull to 100%, or to 1, a value of 1, as I pull that, it has the ability to pull that character all the way through. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set a couple little tweak keys on that. We'll grab this foot and we'll pull it up. So changing the animation, animating on top of what the retargeting is doing, So we'll grab both of those guys and we'll just keyframe those. So now what I've done is I've introduced an offset into this whole animation here, so it's not going to look good when you get down to the bottom. So what we want to do is we want to zero out the effect. I want him just to kind of come up here and rise up, does a little kick, and I want that rise to maybe start bleeding in at this point. So I'll just put a 0 key on that. So he's going to kind of rise up, kick his legs up high in the air, and then as he drops back down here, we'll go ahead and we'll set another 0 key. So we've added a little tweak or a little finesse to that, and then obviously because it's an animation layer, if I don't want to see the effect, I can turn it on and off. I can ghost it. I could use the weight to dial in the effect of that, and again, I could add as many animation layers as I want. So that's a quick example of the new animation retargeting workflow in Maya 2011 that's again based on the HumanIK middleware. It's non-destructive and it's a live process that allows you to make any changes or tweaks in real time.